Warbreaker is quickly becoming one of my most favorite standalone fantasy novels of all time. If you've seen my previous videos, you'll know that I consider Vivenna the most important character in the book, and I even go as far as naming her the primary protagonist of the story. That doesn't mean, however, that I like any of the other characters any less. In fact, it's quite the opposite. While I believe Vivenna is the most important character, there is a character I find is far more enjoyable to read and whose chapters I always looked forward to. That character is, of course, Lightsong. But other than being the quirky funny guy, there is a depth to Lightsong that genuinely surprised me when I first read Warbreaker. And after finishing the book, I've come to consider his character absolutely beautiful. But before I get ahead of myself, let's explore exactly who Lightsong is. Lightsong is a Halandran god, one of the returned brought back from death to fulfill a greater purpose in his second life. Not having any memory of his life before his death, he spends his days in his temple idling the hours away in the lap of luxury. At first impression, you'll immediately notice that Lightsong is one of the wittiest characters you'll find in the Cosmere. He has great chemistry with his high priest Larimar and one of the other gods, Blushweaver. Throughout the book, Lightsong goes from an idler, bored and frustrated with his station, to a man avidly seeking the story behind his previous life, and he finally becomes the hero who saves his kingdom by giving his own life. Once you realize the subtle nuance of his character, you'll inevitably begin to question what he actually means within the confines and the context of the story. What is his purpose and what does he represent? What are the layers beneath the immediately obvious? Well, let's examine that. There are a few things that Lightsong represents, and I think it comes as no surprise to anyone that the first layer would be that he represents laughter, happiness, and general mirth. While the character of Lightsong is quite introspective and melancholy at times, he is first and foremost a means for us to laugh. He makes jokes, pokes fun, and entertains us. It's the surface layer makeup of his character and it works well. He's meant to bring us out of the deep and serious chapter we've just read. Well, he is at first. But as you begin to see more of him, you'll begin to understand that there's more to him than just being the funny guy. Beneath that layer of wit and jokes, there's a man who questions his place in the world. A man who questions the fundamental tenets behind the religion that places him as a god. It's a man who criticized the very society that made a god of him. Yes, beneath the jibes and word games, there's the heart of a cynic. Lightsong doesn't believe in his own religion. He questions his own high priest on whether or not it makes sense for him to be worshipped. He doubts his own divinity and constantly questions his followers on what exactly makes him divine. This is a brilliant way for Sanderson to not only give us a bit of a break from more serious chapters, but for us also to begin questioning things. We're taught to begin questioning the world, the ruling structure, and even the characters themselves. This is crucial as we're prompted more and more to ask why the priests do what they do. Why do they have so much power? What are their plans with Susebron? Why are they vying for war? Lightsong subtly prompts us to begin questioning everything by showing us how he does the same. There's even a large part of the book where he begins to believe he was a detective in his previous life. More and more the funny guy makes us start to look at things through a deductive and cynical lens. Not all is as it appears, and Lightsong constantly questions it. But of course there's another side of his character and meaning that I haven't really touched on yet. More than being the comedic relief and the introspective detective, Lightsong represents something even more profound. He represents sacrifice. The returned are brought back from death, and their method of dying also affects the title they're given as gods. Lightsong is called Lightsong the Bold, because he died in a way that exemplified bravery. We learn near the end that he accomplished this by jumping into the ocean during a storm in order to save his drowning niece. He saved her, but died in the process and then subsequently returned as a god. He sacrificed his own life for the life of another. And as if that weren't enough, he then readily sacrifices his own reputation and standing as a god by constantly mocking himself, acting lazy and uninterested in the affairs of state, and even questioning the beliefs that labeled him as a god in the first place. And finally, the most important sacrifice. The one that secures victory for the God King and helps prevent the war he fought so hard to stave off. He sacrifices his own life to heal Susebron and bring his ability to speak back. With his tongue healed, the God King defeats the Pankal assaulting the palace and saves Ciri. He then uses his power with Vash's guidance to stop the awakened army from destroying Idris, all thanks to Lightsong's final sacrifice. I think that while Vivenna may be the most important and well-developed character in the book, I firmly believe Lightsong is the deepest and most nuanced in his depiction. Vivenna pushes the plot forward and develops the most. Ciri provides crucial insight into the plot surrounding the God King and the priests around him, and Vasha gives us glimpses into a hidden part of the plot, one we're not privy to until the near end of the book. Each character has an important role to play, but Lightsong not only gives us a few precious moments of levity and relaxation, but also questions our perception of what is presented to us. He represents something deeper, and at the end helps us see the whole novel in a new light. Lightsong's story is beautiful, and at the same time tragic. It's beautifully tragic, and I think that's why he's one of my favorite characters in Warbreaker. But, of course, as always, that's just my opinion. Who was your favorite character in the book? Do you agree with me? Did you enjoy Lightsong as much as I did? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the book just as much as I did, and if you enjoyed this video, then I feel like you are obligated to click that subscribe button, or at least just hit that like button. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.